Hey, good morning, and welcome to the Wisdom of the Soul from La Quinta, California, the low desert near Palm Springs. Pleasure to be with you. Uh, our friend and usual co-host, one of our two co-hosts, Hannah, reminded me this morning that tomorrow is actually the first anniversary of the beginning of this class. So that's sort of exciting to me to consider that we had 3 weeks off during the year, so I guess we did 49 classes. That would probably make this class number 49 or maybe 50. And all of those are on YouTube. All of them can be found by searching Ageless Wisdom Mystery School. An edited version is podcast to all podcatchers and players. And so, we love it whenever you can join us live. If you're unable to, you can listen to the full program and see the full unedited video on YouTube, or catch the edited podcast wherever you get your audio podcasts. Ageless Wisdom Mystery School, and the class is Wisdom of the Soul. And today, our topic is the mirror of the mind. Mirror of the Mind is a truly ancient meditative and really a hypnosis technique that goes back, I don't know, over 100 years easily. And I think the whole concept of the mind as a mirror could arguably be traced to the oldest civilizations. I'm thinking, for example, of ancient Hermetic alchemy. The pyramid builders of Egypt, their second rubric, the second law of their emerald tablet, as above, so below, and as it is below, so it is above. As I mentioned in the newsletter this week, the idea that physical dense reality, the material universe, is in some way a reflection of divine mind, or that we are made in the image of the Creator, certainly a popular phrase from Genesis. All of this can be seen as a reference to reflection. And even the word to reflect is a wonderful word. Gee, I'm gonna think about that. Let me reflect on it for a little bit. Meditations are often called reflections. And we have the story of Narcissus falling in love with his own image in as it was reflected in the pool of water. So mirrors and reflection as a way of seeing yourself, not just seeing your face in the mirror, which can be a very trippy thing to do. If you study your face long enough in a mirror, are willing to really open your mind when you do it, will wonder, where is the me in all of that? Am I more than the face? What do other people see? Could I pretend I was somebody else as I look at my face in the mirror? And obviously, we're more than our bodies, so that face is a reflection of who I am, but on a deeper level, who am I? Well, not to go too far afield, the mirror of the mind, which we'll talk about today, is a very practical and useful technique for healing, for solving problems, and for attaining goals. The law of attraction, so to speak. And before we do the opening meditation, I want to begin with a construct that, if you're familiar with my material, maybe you've come across before, but it's likely you have not. And that's the outrageous suggestion that there are only two problems in the world. I've been teaching this for 40 years to some really bright women and men, And nobody's ever said this does not work for me. Could it be that there are only two types of problems or categories of problems? Number one, oh, I know what I want. I know the solution. I know the desired outcome, the result that I'm looking for. My problem is in getting there or getting it or making it happen, but I know what I want. That's the first kind of problem. I know what I want, but not how to manifest it. And then, of course, the other problem would be what? I don't know what I want. Uh, I haven't got the foggiest idea. Not only do I not know how to get it, I don't even know what it is. There's no there yet. I might already have the solution and not even recognize it. I might already have what I'm looking for, and it's not even apparent to me. But for the most part, you and me and everybody else, the reason there are times in our lives that we don't have what we want, it usually can be attributed to not really knowing what we want. So that may be the more difficult of the two problems, to know what you want, to know what you want the most, and to know why you want it. And all of it, of course, hinges on who is the wanter? Who am I that I would want this? And if we factor in then the Buddhist philosophy of desire being the source of all of our suffering, what if you don't get what you want? Or what if you only thought you wanted it and then you got it and desire nature raised up again and said, well, that's not enough. No matter how many of our desires are fulfilled, desire nature is never satiated. It always wants more. So it's a trap. You got to be careful of it. Nevertheless, there are things that we need to accomplish and get done in a very practical way in our lives. And so we'll talk about that. So I just want to lay that down and give you something to ponder here as we go into the opening meditation. Does that construct work for you? Or can you make a little note or a mental note and consider it later? Could it be that this would be a really handy dandy way of organizing all of our problems into one or two categories that would then help us approach the solution or the refinement of that problem? That there is knowing what you want, in which case the problem is not knowing how to get it. That's why I have the problem, but I do know what I want. I think I do anyway. And then the only other kind of problem, to have no idea. Or maybe you have a vague idea what you want, but you're not sure. And how would I know what I want? That may sound a little convoluted and a little confusing, but I think it's a pretty handy place to begin. Do you know what you want? You're unhappy. When you're unhappy, is it because you don't have what you want or because you have no idea what would make you happy? And again, what about this desire nature that as soon as we get what we think we want, something else rises to take its place? Oh, now I want that. Now I want more, right? Let's do our opening focus or group meditation, and then we'll talk more about the mirror of the mind technique and problem solving. So if you'll close your eyes and get comfortable in your chairs, feel the chair supporting you, feet flat on the floor, feel the floor beneath your feet. Realize that the floor supports the chair as surely as the chair supports you. You need not cooperate. Really let go. Deeply let go. Watch your body breathing. Put your awareness on the bottom of your tongue or maybe on the rise and fall of your rib cage or your belly. And let the dust settle. Let everything slow down a little bit as you simply watch your body breathe itself. And from head to toe, create and sense a feeling of letting go, of being really, really safe. And in your mind's eye, or perhaps it helps to visualize a little movie screen floating a few inches in front of your forehead, that through closed eyelids you can imagine seeing. And with your mind's eye, your ability to imagine, see the number 1 as if it were a Roman numeral. And then see the number 1 as you would write it with a pencil or a pen on a sheet of paper. And then see the number 1 as a typeface, a font, as if printed on your computer, or for that matter, one of those old-fashioned typewriters. And feel the letting go. Feel yourself relaxing deeply. Now, to go a little deeper, let's count 3 to 1. Visualize in your mind's eye the number 3 as a Roman numeral. Feel the letting go and see the number 3 as if written in your handwriting on a sheet of paper. And then see the number 3 as if printed by a computer, typeface or font. And scan your body with your awareness from your head to your soles of your feet and back again, slowly and gently sweeping the full length of your body. Remember to do your arms through the elbows to the tips of your fingers and thumbs. Letting go of physical tension. And then visualize the number 2 in your mind's eye as if it were a Roman numeral. See the number 2 as written in your own handwriting. And see the number 2 as a font or typeface. As you turn your awareness to your emotional nature and feel the calming and the quieting of your emotions. As if sitting beside a small lake or a pond and watching the little waves and the ripples becoming slowly smaller and smaller until the surface of the water becomes completely undisturbed. and smooth as glass. And feel your emotional nature as calm and as peaceful as a glass lake. And now see the number 1 as a Roman numeral, as written in your own handwriting. And as a font or a typeface. And become aware of the way the chattering in your mind is already reduced. That while your mind will continue to think or generate thoughts, for that's what the mind does, notice that these are not purposeful or deliberate thoughts. Just as you have learned to watch your breath without identifying as the breather, but simply to be the watcher of your body breathing itself, as we've done so often over these last weeks and months. You can, in the same way, be the observer or the witness, especially in these states of deep relaxation and expanded awareness, of the tendency of the mind to continue to generate thoughts on its own, as if the mind had its own agenda. But you resist the temptation. Better said, you release any suggestion that you need to follow those thoughts. They may be tempting you. They may even insist that you follow them, but you don't need to. You could just let them go. And as you identify as the witness or the watcher rather than the thinker, and you release the temptation to follow the thought logically, you'll notice new thoughts rise to take their place. These spontaneous thoughts, sometimes called intrusive thoughts, are, as we have discussed before, task unrelated, as opposed to purposeful and deliberate thoughts which are related to a particular task: reading, writing, deciding, understanding, setting a goal, making a list, again, choosing between this or that, wondering what to do. That's deliberate thinking, but to watch the mind just spinning on its own, dancing, petitioning you for your attention, is a very different kind of thinking. There, we may even challenge the idea that this is thinking at all. Let me be quiet for a moment or two until you hear my voice again. Reject the idea that you are the thinker and instead be the watcher or the witness. And watch the mind try to distract you or pull you off center, to involve you. Notice how it tempts you. The secret is to not judge, not decide, not follow. Just see what your mind does in the next minute or two to try to trick you into believing it is you. When we sit quietly, deeply relaxed, with expanded awareness, we have greater insight and understanding. It's odd, a bit of an enigma or a paradox, because all of our lives we've been taught that you have to try hard to think. You have to make an effort to think, to work at thinking, to try harder to understand. When in fact, insight, understanding, even concentration and focus, attention, is our relaxation skills. Become smarter, relax. Stop trying so hard to understand through cogitation and logic and reasoning and analysis. Though these are wonderful abilities, very useful and handy, they have their time and place. And so too, just taking a step back or elevating your perspective slightly to non-attach, create a little distance, and identify as the observer of the thought. To just be curious about the games the mind plays. To study the unconscious is to understand the self. And how many of our thoughts are not purposeful, but habitual, part of patterns, belief systems, and often impulses from primitive times, even in animal nature. Why'd you do that? Because I felt like it. Yeah, but before you did it, did you think that? No, I didn't think at all. I thought about it afterwards. And came up with a cover story. And a defense. In the back and forth of feelings generating thoughts and thoughts generating feelings, like a tennis match or a ping pong game back and forth. When you're ready to act, the order is a clear, detailed, specific thought as an energy is driven forward into action by a positive feeling, or stopped in its tracks and held back by a negative feeling. The emotion is energy in motion. The thought is the energy. The emotion is the force, the push, or the drive, or the pull. It's the thought driven into action by the feeling. Mental, emotional, physical. Let's get it straight. Emotions led into action reflexively without consideration, without careful thought, can be disastrous. At the very least, regrettable. So one of the benefits of meditation is to understand the thinking of the mind, its relationship to the emotional and to the physical. The fourth element would be our perception of the world around us, our relationships, our comings and goings and happenstance in the world. And overshadowing all of that, awareness itself. To be aware of our thoughts makes us smarter. To be more aware of our feelings makes us happier. To be more aware of the consequences of our behavior before we initiate it, and to minimize reflexive reactions is to be more successful, to be more aware of our relationships with others, people, animals, the environment, the world around us, is to live a richer, more productive, gratifying life. And to be aware of awareness itself is love. Love is not an emotion, you see. It's awareness. It's consciousness. It's the understanding that transcends knowledge. Deep, yet expansive, profound, ineffable. Capital L, love, which heals, refines, uplifts, saves, resurrects, harmonizes, and ultimately unifies all things. Returning to the wide awake state is 3 simple steps, simply forming the intention, number 1. Number 2, move in that direction as if slowly awakening, rising up, floating upward. And 3, eyes open now, wide awake, back in the room. Open your eyes, wide awake, feeling better than before. Maybe a little stretch. Big breath. Back in the room, feeling better and better. When we come to the Q&A in a few minutes, I want you to, first of all, direct your questions to Melinda today. She's our co-host for today, so we're starting to finally figure out how this chat box works. And the best way to handle this, I think, is just to, whoever is our co-host today, it's Melinda, address your comment or your question to her in the chat box. Just some mention, some brief, concise, I'd like to talk about this, I'd like to ask this, my topic is this, I'm curious about that. And then when we go to the Q&A, we'll give you the opportunity to unmute and expand on that if you wish. Or I can just comment on it. I'd really be interested in knowing about your experience of watching your thoughts, because when you first begin doing it, it's rather strange, to say the least. We are so identified with being the thinker that to stand back and without even judging, as that's a good thought, that's a bad thought, that's a better thought, that's a productive thought, that's a incongruous thought. Just give all that judging up and just watch the mind try to, again, seduce you. It's trying to tease you. It's trying to provoke you into following it. And when we do, we call it thinking. You see someone over in the corner alone, staring off into space, a pensive look on their face. Hey, Bill, Sally, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Penny for your thoughts. Oh, nothing. Nothing. Just, I don't know, just sort of thinking. No, you're not. Not really. We call it thinking. It's really not thinking, is it? It's imperative that we begin to study the mind on this level. That's the whole point of Vipassana, of watching the body breathe itself, and identifying as the witness rather than the breather. And I know people that have been doing Vipassana for years and nobody ever explained it to them. And I don't know why. That's the reason we do it. Because it creates this, it's not a separation and it's not detachment, because then we'd be oblivious. So we're even more involved when we're non-attached. You see, we're even more aware. Isn't that ironic, as I said in the meditation, that profound insight and expansive understanding is a relaxation skill. It's not, you know, tighten your forehead, furrow your brow, and, put your finger on your forehead and think real hard and try to remember. It's just like sports psychology. The harder you try, the worse you do. On the other hand, if you didn't care at all, you'd also do poorly. So you got to find the top of the bell curve where you care and you make an effort and you aspire to do your best, whatever it is, thinking, problem solving, goal setting, or some performance, athletic performance, public speaking, singing, dancing, acting. You got to care, you got to psych up, but if you go too far, then your performance degrades and your memory goes to hell. And you got to tune the instrument, gang. Can you get a feeling for what I mean by tune the instrument? You got to find that balance point at the top of the bell curve. The upward side is called eustress. That's EU stress. That means good stress. Down the other side, going too far, that's distress. Little stress is good for us. Too much stress is not. Okay, let's talk about mirror of the mind now. You've had a chance to consider what I've said about there's only two problems. Today we'll talk about the problem that I know what I want. I got a pretty darn good idea what it would take to solve this problem, to attain this goal, or fix, manage, improve upon this situation. What makes it a problem is I don't know how to get there, how to do it, how to make it happen. I'm not sure what to do. The other kind of problem, the only other kind of problem I would suggest, is not having a goal or a target or a sense of a solution, a desired outcome in the first place. I have no idea. Not only do I have no idea what to do, but I don't even know what there is. I haven't the foggiest. Now, having said that, I think what complicates all of this for us is, for whatever reason, we tend to approach all problem solving as if it were a task that needs to be done. And so we look at all of our problems in a singular fashion, asking ourselves, what should I do about this? And we may ask others, and they say, well, don't ask me what to do. I don't know what to do. Hey, what do you think I should do? I got no idea what you should do. Well, I'm trying to figure out what to do. What to do about what? Well, that's part of the problem. I don't know what. I'm confused and I don't know what to do. Considering that you can break the problem down into one of these two is a way to release that whole mental maze, that trap of asking the wrong question. The question is not, what should I do? It instead should be, do I know what I want? Replace what should I do? What do you want me to do? What do you think we should do? I don't know what to do. Replace all of that to do with, do I know what I want? You may want to write that down. I think it's pretty powerful. Do you know what you want? There are other questions I hinted at earlier today. Do you know why you want it? Do you know what you want the most? Have you considered the consequences? How particular, how specific is your wanting, your desire? Do you really want this, or the feeling that goes with it, or the sense of accomplishment? Do you want it because it truly would please you, or because it would enhance your image in the eyes of other people? The questions you really need to ask yourself. There's also, could I be happier with what I already have? Maybe I don't want anything. Maybe a better affirmation is, grant me what I need, give me what I need. Whether it's a reward or a trial. I'll be happy. I'll be happy with that. I really don't want much. So if you substitute, what should I do? What do you think I should do? I don't know what to do. Substitute for that the question, do I know what I want? Then if the answer is yes, you're going to move to mirror the mind. And a few other techniques I'll touch on. If you have no idea what you want, the desired outcome, the result, the goal, the solution, the fix, we'll talk next week about approaches to being able to resolve that issue, to decide indeed what you do want, what you would like to envision as the goal, the result, the desired outcome. We'll talk about that next week. So this week, it's just, yeah, I know what I want. Now, what do I do to get it? I think the first thing we need to consider is that we're not alone in this. Now, one of the great lies that our senses and sensations tell us is that everything in the material world is separate. Because of the limitations of our senses, we feel quite alone and alienated. We spend our lives reaching out to touch, to have some sort of contact. We know that there are many animals that see beyond the limits of our vision. They see light at frequencies that are lower and higher than what we're able to see, colors that are outside the spectrum of red to violet. Just an ability that many animals have. So too, many other animals can hear sounds lower and more often higher than we're able to hear. Whale sounds. If you think you've heard a whale, you're listening to a small fraction of the sound the whale is actually making. Most of most of the sound the whales and dolphins too, for that matter, are making are way beyond your capacity to hear with your ears and that whole nervous system that connects the ears to the brain. Whales can communicate audibly over hundreds of miles. And the sonar that dolphins use, for example, or that a bat will use. Again, you can't hear that. The bat clearly can. The winged bat is almost blind. The only way it can find its way around is to make these sounds that we can't hear. So there's this whole universe out here that's beyond our sense and sensation that we really know nothing of. It's our senses that tell us that everything is separate. Even when I reach out to pick something up, I pick up my coffee cup. Excuse me, now that I've picked it up, it's actually tea. The material part of my hand and the material that is that coffee cup, those electrons, protons, neutrons, those particles did not touch. If we could zoom in, what was that exhibit at Disneyland? They used to have them. Wasn't it the Monsanto exhibit where you get in a little train car and you take a trip into the tunnel and they take you down to the cellular level, but then you keep going into the cell, and next thing you know, you're on a molecular level, and these particles are spinning around you. The distance between the particles and even the densest material, like lead or titanium, the distance between those particles is on a scale that's similar to the planets in our solar system. It's 99.99% open space in my hand. It's the energy that binds it together. So when I pick up my coffee cup, it's energy that holds the cup, which is bound together with energy. Any physicist will tell you, and anybody with at least one physics, college level physics class will tell you that this is all an illusion. The idea that the physical world is solid. It's not. And so nothing is really separate. It's a dance of particles. We're immersed in an ocean of energy that has these particles dancing around in it. But my argument is that separation is an illusion, that we're all part of one thing. And when we become deeply relaxed and open our minds, we empower ourselves. For being in the image of the Creator means we create our reality, not merely through our reaction, not merely through our actions, not merely through our thoughts and feelings. It really begins with intention and attention. It's the mind that creates. And so when you do know what you want, when you have a problem or a situation, it could be an illness that you would like to accelerate to healing. It could be financial problem. It could be a relationship, distressful relationship, each person feeling hurt and insulted and demeaned or discounted or dismissed by another. Doesn't matter what the situation is. It could be running out of gas in the car. People say, well, I would just pray. What's the difference between mirror the mind and prayer and visualization? It's all the same thing. It really is. Properly done, it's all the same thing. And remember, Christ said, these things I do, you can do and more. So he was talking about walking on water and healing the sick and fishes and the loaves. And why would he say that? Hey, you guys can do all of that. He asked Peter to come out of the boat when he's walking on water and try it for himself while he lectured them on not being afraid. So you're not alone. This separated self, this jiva nature, as it's called in the East, this persona, which means mask, this personality, this ego sense that you identify as a separate being in this body, which is in perpetual flux, right? Every cell in your body is being replaced every few years. You're never the same for long. We have access. We are an emanation. We are a outpicturing of a creative force so fundamental it's often referred to as the creator or the absolute. You have access to that. You are made in the image of that. You can do the same thing if you practice, if you have faith. It's positive thinking. And does it always work? Yeah, it always works, but we're such neophytes that we often don't recognize when we manifest, when we express exactly what we've intended to, because we often get what we need enfolded within what we want. What's that old saying? Be careful what you ask for. And mythology is full of these kinds of lessons and tricksters where the leprechaun or the genie gives you wishes, and every time you make a wish, you get what you want, but somehow you run amok because you didn't understand the power. Uh, the Midas touch, King Midas was a great example. Granted a wish, he said, well, I wish everything I touch turns to gold. Fine. Everything now, fine. Your wish is granted. Everything you touch turns to gold. He starved to death, right? He went to pick up a sandwich, it turned to gold. Mythology is full of these, full of these stories. So you have to be careful what you wish for, careful for what you want. And then, of course, as I said before, to recognize as Buddhists in their philosophy, bring front and center is the insatiable nature of desire in the first place. Really? Are you sure this is what you want? I mean, I think you're safe if you desire to be healed. If you want to use relaxation to release a migraine headache. Or, I mean, why do we call illness dis-ease? If not because stress is a major component of all illness. Stress suppresses worry and doubt and nervousness and anxiety and confusion, uncertainty, suppresses the immune system. And so we develop these maladies. There's some component of that in everything, but we always want to find the one reason. Find that one virus, that one bacteria, that one fungus, that one parasite. That No, man, it's complicated. It's really, really complicated. And yet the mind-body connection, consciousness is an element of everything. It's not the ultimately it's the whole story, but we're not Christed. We're just not that good at it. Yet still, to be optimistic and to maintain a positive attitude, to use deep relaxation and visualization or guided imagery, to know what you want and visualize yourself already having it has merit. There's value in it, even in very mundane ways. A couple of weeks ago, I offered the technique of programming parking places. Sure enough, one of you came to me. I don't remember now if it was in class or afterward. and said, man, that worked. I couldn't, like, I visualized this parking place right in front of where I wanted to go on this busy street. There's never parking there. And I came around the corner and bam, there it was, just like you said. No, it wasn't there just like I said. It was there just like you said, like you you visualized. So if you're a pessimist and oh, I can never find parking here, the universe goes, okay, you'll never find parking here. You know, the universe only says yes. It says yes to your negative thinking and your worries and doubts and fears, just like it says yes to your positive thinking. It's just not always that clear cut and that obvious. Sometimes things come around very quickly. Bam! Instant karma right off the bat. Sometimes it's slower than that, right? Relaxation is an exceedingly important aspect of this, and then visualization, and that's mirror the mind. You simply, when you have the kind of problem where you know what you want, and you can visualize specifically, clearly, in great detail, the more specific, the more detailed, the more lucid, the better. Go into a meditative state. There's variations on how to do this. Silva Mind Control, they have a blue frame and it turns to a white frame, and this is the past and this is the future and this is the present. Let's just keep it simple. Just close your eyes and relax and dream your dream. Imagine yourself in a place of perfect peace, a beautiful place of ideal relaxation, a wilderness, a beautiful garden in Eden, and in the middle of that wilderness, that garden, is a big freestanding mirror, a beautiful mirror with this elegantly carved frame. And at first you see yourself in that mirror. And then you imagine the object, the item, or more commonly, the situation, the circumstance, the condition that you wish to attract, the law of attraction that you wish to magnetize or manifest, as if taking a trip forward in time. You see it reflected in the mirror as if it already is what you wish it to be. And then what I like to do, what works well for me, is like Alice through the looking glass. I imagine myself then walking toward that mirror and stepping into the mirror through the looking glass as if taking a trip forward in time. And now I experience myself, I immerse myself in the wonderful feelings of already having it. Whether it's a healing, whether it's pain control, whether it's, again, an object that will satisfy a particular need, a state, a condition, a relationship. Oh, I'm dreading going to the party because Joe's going to be there. And the last time I saw him, he was such a jerk, and we didn't get along very well. And now it's so awkward. I'm going to see him at the party. My God, what if you did a mirror of the mind and just visualize in that mirror you encountering Joe later that evening, and it goes exactly as you would like it to go. You rehearse it in your mind's eye. Those of you who know sports psychology may say, wait a minute, this is sounding a little familiar. This is an ancient technique. It's been around so long because it works. Miracles happen. I'm telling you, miracles happen. I worked with salespeople. The worst thing you can do as a salesperson is a cold call. They hate cold calls. I said, fine. So Put your hand on the phone before you make the cold call and imagine it going exactly as you'd like it to go. Practice overcoming objections. Practice acknowledging objections and say, I know how you feel. If I was you, I'd probably think the same thing. Here's what I found. Okay. Rehearse it in your mind's eye. Play it back and forth over and over. Edit it, rewind it, play it again until you get it exactly as you want. And then roll it one more time and say, that's it. That's the way it's going to go. Let it be. So be it. It is done. Then open your eyes, pick up the phone, make the call. You can do it in 60 seconds. You haven't wasted any time. See, and see how much smoother things go for you. There's unlimited applications to the mirror of the mind. And I'd love to get your comments and your remarks and, of course, your questions as well about all of this. So we still got 25 minutes in the class, plenty of time. Direct your comments to Melinda. And again, I'll respond and we'll give you the opportunity to unmute and we'll discuss it a little bit further if you wish. Melinda?
Right. That's a lot. There was a lot in that talk. Maybe you could touch on the way Silva prefaces their technique with, I will always use this for the good of mankind. And then I have an old program in my head that reminds me that of this technique used for the prosperity gospel type Rolls Royces. And I'm glad Silva says, I will always use this for the benefit of mankind. But that seems to be the judgment in there.
Let me talk about that. That's a great question. My tendency is to respond this way. There is black magic, there is gray magic, and there is white magic. Black magic is using this to cause harm, to wish, well, for evil purposes, to be wicked, to wish that somebody dies, or they fall down and they break their leg, or you're in a competition and you want to win, so instead of seeing yourself as a winner, you see them losing. Or you're angry at somebody because they hurt you and you wish them, you send thoughts that are dark and evil and wicked. That's black magic. Gray magic, and boy, the New Agers don't like it when I talk about gray magic. I literally got thrown off a podcast. Somebody was doing one of these, how to manifest your fortune and cars and money and relationships. And they had this elementary school approach to this beautiful spiritual practice. And I started talking about gray magic, and they were not happy at all. Look, we have physical needs in this physical world. Sometimes we do need money, or it appears we need money. I think there are, as you practice this, more elegant ways to approach things. I spoke a few weeks ago about how I used to program traffic lights, and then I realized how foolish that was, so I just programmed being there on time, or even if I was late, that it wouldn't matter, and I found that worked out a lot better. Doreen and I sometimes tell a story about playing Trivial Pursuit with some friends, and they were using visualization to control or influence the cast of the dice. I think it was Trivial Pursuit. It was some dice game. And they were frustrated that they didn't do very well. And at the end of the game, they admitted that they were using guided imagery and visualization to influence the throw of the dice. And Doreen said, really? We just visualize winning the game. Sometimes we're a little short-sighted when it comes to goal setting, you know. You break down your strategy and your tactics, you could call them little mini goals, but a step in the direction is really not a goal. So, what is your bigger goal? Maybe your goal is just to be happy and content. Maybe your goal is just for things to work out, and we don't need to be quite so specific. But gray magic is using these spiritual laws to get over in the material world excessively. Everybody needs access to transportation, a car, public transportation. Lots of people in New York, for example, or big cities, they don't have cars, they don't need cars, they don't want cars. They wouldn't take a car if you gave it to them. They have mass transit, they Uber, they taxi, they walk, they not a problem. They don't need a car. But people who use this law of attraction, or the so-called secret, for excess, for wealth, for power, for what did Christ say? What good is it? Didn't he say something like, what good is it to win the world and lose your soul? That's gray magic. So black magic is wishing wickedness on others, that some ill fortune befalls them. Gray magic would be using spiritual laws for material excess, more than you need. It benefits no one but you. It's self-centered and selfish. And then white magic would be, as you've suggested, Mindy, for the greater good of all concerned. And it's a real good check anytime you wish, you pray, you program, you visualize, you heal, that it all be done for the greater good of all concerned. If that's difficult to say, or if you have a hard time saying it, then maybe you need to reconnoiter and take another look at, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why does anybody have to lose or suffer in order for me to benefit? Can't the world just be so harmonious and so coordinated and coherent that we all win? I think I think it, there's room for everybody to win. There's room for everybody to benefit. And so you make an excellent point, and I had forgotten actually that Silva uses that, but I certainly concur, for the greater good of all. Every affirmation, every positive thought, provided this is for the greater good of all. Yeah.
So Michael, when you channel winning the game, is that just kind of a little fun thing? Or I mean, when you take that example and plug it into what you just said, it's a little petty maybe, but it's the kind of thing that I think I can get, or people can get caught up in.
What do you mean winning the game?
When you were doing the Trivial Pursuit or whatever it was in
Oh,
Doris, I was just channeling winning. And the other people were channeling the dice. And I mean, it's not to take it too literally, but I'm sure you were all having a good time. But in the bigger picture, there's just a lot of win at any cost out there, and I think these
I get
techniques
it.
can be. I think it's easy. I think it's just real tempting to lose focus. Maybe it comes back to what you talked about: awareness is love, and like Hannah posted the Matthew scripture. Thank you for that in the chat. That not losing sight of what our purpose is.
Um, you're asking the question, what does it mean to win the game? And I think even in high school, sportsmanship is about friendly competition healthy competition, the way competition helps us all to be better. But if you need the other to suffer a loss, that's not winning the game. No one has to lose in the larger sense. And so the best sporting contests, or we were talking about a board game here with dice, but whatever the situation, take a sporting contest with professionals, no matter who wins, or even on the college level for the most part, and hopefully on the high school level too. At the end of the game, regardless of who has more points on the scoreboard, the team members congratulate each other, they pat each other on the back. I mean, I've seen boxers commonly do this, where they spend 12 rounds beating the hell out of each other, trying to kill the other guy. And ding, ding, as soon as the last bell rings, they're hugging each other and great job. And so it begs the question, what do you mean by winning the game? We should be able to win and enjoy competition and sportsmanship, sportspersonship, without having to crush our opponent. This is one of the problems we have in capitalism as well. Free enterprise, I heard Bill Maher say the other day, capitalism may be messy, but it's better than your only other choice, socialism. Wait a minute, those are not the only two choices. Free enterprise is very different from cartel capitalism or winner-take-all capitalism. Capitalism today is about not just winning and prospering and feeding your family and enjoying a nice lifestyle. It's about crushing the competition. There's 5 corporations that are in charge of everything, 5 companies. All your groceries come from 5 corporations. Try to open a market. See what happens if you open your own market. You'll be crushed. The best scenario you could hope for is they're going to buy you out. And maybe you call that a success. Well, I opened the market, but they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I took the money, but I really miss that market. I miss seeing the people come and go. I miss being part of that community. I thought I was successful when I sold it for a couple $1,000,000, but man, the money doesn't really do it. I really wish I had my market back. And what did the big corporation do? They shut it down or turned it into one of their markets and then disguised their name. Here in Southern California, we go to Ralph's. That's a Kroger store. But if they put Kroger on in Phoenix, it's Fry's, right? That's a Kroger store. If they put Kroger on all those stores, you'd realize, wait a minute, there's only 4 or 5 companies, so they use the names of the companies they purchased, and so too with healthcare and media and energy and manufacturing. It's Fortune 500 now is like the Fortune 50. There's other ways of doing that. That's not capitalism is not one thing. We could have that same approach that you're talking about, that friendly sportsmanship. Yeah, I want to grow. I want to excel. I want to make a difference. I want to be the best I can be. There's a great little feature I heard on the radio this morning, listening to CBS Sunday Morning. It's a TV show, but they also play it on CBS Radio on Sunday morning. And I got to listen to it later today because it was this whole episode about this corporation that is set up in such a way that the workers in the company have a vested interest in the company profiting. They're allowed to be stakeholders and encouraged to be stakeholders in the company. And when the company profits, they profit. They're not just paid some hourly wage or weekly salary. It's almost like they're shareholders in the company by virtue of the fact they just work there. And it changes the whole environment of the place. And they promote from within, and you work your way up through the ranks, and there's none of this authoritarian do it or I'll fire you and pull from an economy of underpaid workers and replace you in a New York minute, buddy, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do. It's a horrible way to run a corporation. I used to do a corporate training called Commander to Coach that was all about giving up this parenting drill sergeant approach to authoritarian business management and replacing it with a coaching, so that you train your replacement. You create a leadership engine that drives power down to lift people up. Most capitalism, there's no room for that. So your question is so good, because what's it mean to win the game? Can we all be winners at the end, and not just feel that winning means to crush the competition or to humiliate them? Thank you for that.
So the antidote to that is people doing their individual practice. I remember a year ago when we just started, that was my pressing worry or question of how to solve these big global problems. Coming down to an individual approach, there doesn't really seem to be any other practical way.
The best thing an individual can do is visualize peace. And as Westerners who believe we live in a mechanical world, it's it it appears silly to most people unless it's put in the context of pray to God and ask God to intervene. But the truth is, I believe, my understanding, having studied all religions and all philosophies, I see a consensus, a set of threads running through all of them, that all of this outpicturing, all of this world around us, is a reflection of our thinking. So when we change our thinking, when we change our consciousness, the world changes all by itself. Just like the mirror of the mind. If I stand in front of the mirror and do this, I see it reflected back in the mirror. And so it is when we visualize people getting along. When we visualize, as was said thousands of years ago, turning our guns into plowshares and working together. And a lot of it bears on becoming fearless, not counseling fear, not being seduced by fear, not being stampeded by fear, and recognizing how our leaders stampede us uh, with fear. War is a racket. And when you wave the flag and invest in making sure that your friends and relatives who died in battle did not die for no thing, there has to be some noble cause, and we're fighting for freedom. That has been the case, but rarely. Mostly, we're fighting wars of imperialism. And sometimes,
Anna has her hand up, by the way, Michael.
okay, let me just finish the thought. Uh, what better racket than to make weapons that destroy things, sell those weapons that destroy cities, killing people? Look at Ukraine. And then owning the same company that comes in and rebuilds it. So who wants war? People may say. I'll tell you who wants war. The war industry wants war. Oh, but it's not called the Department of War anymore, Michael. It's called Department of Defense. And the war industry is not the war industry. Please, Michael, don't talk like that. It's the defense industry. Really? So we were in Vietnam to defend America from an invasion by the Vietnamese invincible sampan navy. Really? To protect democracy in America, we had to send my generation to Vietnam and my father's to Korea. Not to mention Panama, Grenada, Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan. Really? How are things better in any of these places? And yet we continue to do it. It's madness. It's absolutely insane. And it's all because they use fear to frighten us, to make us stupid. And so love is the answer. Love is fearlessness. I wrote the book, Fearless Intelligence. Fear makes you stupid. Intelligence comes from being fearless, hence the relaxation, love, awareness. I'm sorry, who did you say had their hands raised?
Anna does.
Ms. Miller. Or did she have to leave for her other meeting?
Oh, no, I'm here. I just thought I unmuted, but I didn't. So I don't know if I really have a question as much as I just kind of want to touch on something you started talking about early, right after the meditation, that I'm just kind of learning, trying to bring into practice in my life. And as usual, I'm going to make an AA reference, but you were talking about praying for stuff and like being satisfied with whichever outcome, or not even, I shouldn't say praying for stuff, but being content with any outcome. And I know you were talking about, whether we call it prayer or not, but for the sake of conversation, I'm going to call it prayer. And there's in step 11, we say sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with higher power, whatever it is, the universe. Praying only for knowledge of our will, the universe's will for us and the power to carry that out, and so there's kind of like a right way to pray or visualize or whatever it is that has to do for me with, I have to detach from what I think I want and take this leap of faith that what I'm visualizing or praying for is the tools and the characteristics to manage whatever comes, not even manage, but to roll with it, to go with the flow, to not go against the grain, to accept things. And because it's an illusion that we're in charge, right? And so then to pray for specific things that are usually selfish is pretty dangerous. So I don't know if you want to comment. And the other thing I'll say really quickly is another thing that's been suggested to me when I'm frustrated with a person, place, or thing is to somebody said to pray for them, that they have everything you think everything you want for yourself, that the other person gets it. But my response to that is, who am I to decide what another person wants or needs, right? And so then it was suggested to me by somebody wiser that no, just pray that they have knowledge of God's will for them and that they have the power to carry that out, and just sort of this universal mindset of all of us moving together forward for our overall benefit.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, actually. We've touched on that. We've danced all around it. I think you've put a pin in it here. Before we pray for what we want or program it, as in mirror the mind, if you will, we're in the computer age, so programming the whole idea of prayer is, are you, is prayer a petitioning of Supreme Being to do something for you, or to create a path of least resistance such that you are empowered to work in harmony with a higher will, a plan, a providence or destiny of the universe that is unfolding for the greater good? So maybe to be to begin by asking for the wisdom to better know what you want, would be another way of saying, to do all of this wishing and wanting and praying and hoping and goal setting and optimism for the greater good of all, provided that no one's hurt and everyone benefits in some little way, or provided that, again, not my little the little wills of men, but the greater capital W will of the absolute, the Godhead, working in harmony with the universe. Go with in Taoism, it's go with the flow, right? Don't push the river. And I think
Or I
that's
think you're making me think of the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and most importantly, in my opinion, the wisdom to know the difference. Because if you don't know the difference, then what are you doing?
yeah. Again, to not do that is to be alone, to be separate, and to think of yourself as, I mean, come on, we did nothing to get here. We obviously came from someplace, and yet we have no recollection of it. We have no power uh, to, besides this fleshy meat sack made out of the earth and the clay and the minerals of the earth. What is this energy that illumines and animates, that is aware of itself, that is self-aware, that can not only think but reflect on its thoughts? It, that's why there is religion. There are stepping stones toward ever greater philosophy, expanded philosophy. And if you don't have the time or the inclination to study philosophy, you have these belief systems, these religious belief systems that set you up. It's like an introduction to the basic virtues and ethics and moralities of, the principles of goodness and kindness and compassion and mercy, and these things we can all agree on, though there's always has been this element of people that are so self-centered that it just doesn't matter to them, the consequences of their behavior, who they hurt. I sometimes wonder about these people, these computer hackers, these people that are trying to get your social security number to sell on the internet. How do they sleep? How do they suppress their conscience? How do you, my neighbors down the road, they all have RFD boxes, mailboxes. We don't, but they do. And they're always complaining about all their mail getting stolen. How does somebody do that? Just drive down the street and steal everybody's mail, thinking that, well, maybe there'll be a check in one of them. But all the pain and inconvenience, and it's just, I don't know how people do it. It's so much easier to be a good person. It seems to me to be a caring, loving, and kind, considerate person is the path of least resistance, as near as I can tell. That's about all the time we have. Do we have anybody else, Mindy?
No, we don't.
Okay, then let's wrap it up. Hannah, thank you for that. Linda, thank you for co-hosting and for your good comments and questions. And thanks to each one of you for making an effort to be here with us live Sunday mornings on our free Zoom call. I guess that's all I have. I was thinking that Yeah, I don't guess they really have anything more. So year 2 starts next week. That's exciting. And we will cover the other kind of problem. So remember the 2 kinds of problems we talked about today. Mirror of the mind would be, oh, I know what I want, but how do I get it? You imagine you already have it. And it's the essence of sports psychology in every performance, and it makes a difference from programming parking places to healing cancer and preparing for job interviews and mending relationships and generating health and prosperity. And then next week, let's talk about, hey, what am I going to do if I have no idea what to put in that mirror? I have no idea what I want. How to do that is to develop intuition. And next week we'll talk about that, and it will include an element. I'll give you a clue. It'll include an element on sleep and the incubation of dreams. Incubating dreams as one way of solving that second kind of problem. I don't even know what I want. I wouldn't know even how to approach it. Okay. So I hope you'll unmute right now and say so long and thank you and farewell and good tidings to your friends. And from me, thank you very much. Aloha, namaste, and salam. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you so much.
Michael,
Thank
bye.
you.
Wonderful week.
Bye, everyone.